art students. In this video, we're going to finish talking about inquiry-based art making. In this video, I'm going to address a few different things to start. I'm going to talk about what the AP process looks like, and then I'm going to talk about how that process that we will complete in class actually connects to the way that you are scored. And I'm not going to get super in depth into the scoring rubric because I've already talked about that in depth on another video. Hopefully you've already done the assignment in Schoology where you highlighted a scoring rubric and you went through and looked at the key terms for what the evaluators are looking for. So as I talk about terms in this video, they should already be familiar to you. So in your sustained investigation, you will submit most of your pieces online. When you submit those pieces, you will be asked to fill in forms where you type the answers for the following questions. You will type about how your ideas are visually evidenced. You will have about 100 characters, so think a Twitter post. You will also talk about the materials that you used. This should be pretty straightforward. We are keeping up with a lot of this information through those checklists that you complete after every assignment. You will also talk about the process that you went through to make the piece. You will also, in a writing portion that is a longer paragraph form answer, identify the questions that guided your sustained investigation. So when you are identifying the questions for your sustained investigation, you have to have come up with questions that you are exploring all throughout the year. So that is our goal for this discussion in this lesson, that you will learn how to use questions to guide your own investigations in making art. You will also have to describe how your sustained investigation shows evidence of practice, experimentation, and revision. This should be guided by your questions. You will have about 1,200 characters. So imagine about 2 paragraphs to 3 paragraphs worth of writing. For your portfolio, you will develop a series of inquiries to investigate. These inquiries or questions will follow a topic and will help you to dive deeper into that topic. The first thing I want you to identify in your AP process is what medium you want to work with. After you've gotten a medium, it is good to move on to a topic that you feel passionate about and that you can take many ideas and many different pieces and tie together with the topic. After you've identified a topic, you can go back to the medium that you originally wanted to work with and see if that still works with the topic that you chose. If you've chosen a good topic and a good medium, then it is time to develop your inquiries. There is no reason that you cannot develop and change your inquiries or your topic throughout the semester. You have all year to work on your portfolio, so make sure that what you write and what you say your theme was reflects the work that you actually make throughout the year. Not only will you be creating and photographing final products, you will also need to document your entire process and write about it. That is why our sketchbooks will become so important. They basically should be an extension of your art making process all year long. What is inquiry-based art making? What is it exactly that AP is looking for? It is a process of making art by starting with questions. These questions should guide your art making. Think about things like why you want to create the art, how you want to create the work of art, and what you want the artwork to say. Those are questions that are very easy questions that we actually ask ourselves every time that we make art. We just might not phrase them as questions. So you might say to yourself, this is the topic that I want to address. Why do I want to create art about this topic? That is a question that you can address throughout your art portfolio. Maybe you know exactly what it is you want to make, and maybe you know exactly why you want to make it, but you want to address how to go about addressing that topic in a clear, inviting way for the viewer. That is another excellent question to guide your sustained investigation. Let's say that you know how you want to make the art and you know why you want to make the art, but you don't know exactly what you want your artwork to say, or you don't know exactly what the message of your artwork is. That is another excellent question to guide your sustained investigation. So these are questions that we actually ask ourselves every time that we're given an assignment in our class or we do an art project on our own. We just don't form them as questions a lot of the times. So actually writing down those questions and documenting your process is part of being an AP Art student. As you work through these questions, you will move from inquiry to investigation, practice, experimentation, revision, communication, and then on to reflection. Those are the steps of the AP process. All of those words come from the AP scoring rubric. In AP Art, you will not only complete these steps in class, you will document them throughout the process. At the beginning of the semester, you will complete 2 projects to practice this process. The packets that I give you to work through for the first 2 projects are helping you practice the AP process. You will do these packets mostly on your own without a lot of guidance from the teacher, because as you're completing your sustained investigation, you cannot depend on the teacher to lead you every step of the way. You need to be a self-starting and a self-motivated individual. When you become an art major in college, or even if you become a professional artist one day, it is important that you can go through this process on your own without your boss or your professor holding your hand. That is one of the ways that this course relates to a college course. So after these first 2 projects where I lead you through it with a packet, and after the first sustained investigation piece where I give you a packet, you're still expected to follow this process, whether or not you're given a grade on every single step. In my AP Art classes, you are given different topics to choose from. The one that interests you most should spur the most questions for you. So that should be something that you should think about pursuing in your own AP portfolio. You can develop a sustained investigation off of one of these assignments. So let's say you began the semester with one idea, but something that you made for one of my project assignments sparked an idea in you. You can either alter your original theme or idea, or you can completely change it. You can do this many times throughout the first 9 weeks. After the first 9 weeks, or even after the first 6 or 7 weeks, you really need to nail down a theme or topic and then stick it through till the end. Make sure that the topic you choose is something that you're extremely interested in. 14 drawings and 6 to 8 sculptures is a lot of artwork, so you don't want to choose something that you're going to get bored with. You can also use any pieces that you make for an assignment in your selected works section, as long as they are 18 inches by 24 inches if they are 2D or smaller. You can use any size sculpture in the selected works section of your portfolio. You just have to have at least 2 different views of that sculpture photographed. So you cannot use a sculpture that is flat. You do not have to use any of the assignments that I've given you in your AP art portfolio. My hope and desire is that you create quality pieces for the first 2 assignments that you would be proud to put in your AP portfolio. But if the first 2 assignments do not turn out as good as you would like them to, or you feel like your skill level has grown a lot after the first 2 assignments, then we do not have to include them in your portfolio at all. If you do not include any of these assignments in your portfolio, then your selected works or your quality will come from the pieces that you make for your sustained investigation. No matter what, we will put your 5 best pieces in the selected works section at the end of the year. I do not make selections for your selected works section until April. In April, I will meet with each and every one of you, and we will look at the photographs that we have of your artwork together. We will look at the pieces together, and between feedback from me, your peers, and other art teachers, we will decide which pieces are your top 6 to 7, and then from there, you will decide which 5 we will send to AP. You will develop questions to drive your art making. I'm going to show you a portfolio by an art teacher, And this will give you an example of exactly what an inquiry-based portfolio looks like. Now keep in mind, this is not a real art portfolio. This is a portfolio by another art teacher, but I feel like it's a fun and lighthearted example that really shows you exactly what you have to do for AP and makes it more accessible to you. Their questions that they were exploring in their portfolio was, how can I capture the personality of a chicken in a caricature of one? How can I push the natural coloring of a chicken into a more expressive one? What materials can I layer to create an interesting combination of color, line, shape, and pattern? How can I develop a setting for the chicken that complements the design of it? Now, before I move on, I want you to take a look at those questions. So just pause a minute and think. There should be some things that you recognize about those questions. First of all, asking yourself how you can capture something in your art is something that we ask ourselves anytime we begin any kind of art making process. So that is a question that you can steal and you can mold into your own question for your own portfolio. The next questions are things that we address in Art 1 and Art 2 when we talk about the elements of art and principles of design. She's talking about expressive coloring. She's talking about line, shape, and pattern. She's talking about the setting or background for her piece. She uses the word design. All of those terms are terms that we teach you so that you can then use them in your AP art portfolio and then on into your degree and your career. So please do not feel like those terms were a waste of your time. The reason that we teach them to you in every single art class is because they are very important to the art making process. Now I want to show you this sustained investigation example. I know my head is covering one of them, but there are 4 chickens on this slide. So they're very traditional paintings of chickens that look a lot like portraits. Some investigation examples are the questions that are on the right side of the screen. So you're going to research the topic that you've chosen, and this topic for this teacher's example portfolio is chickens or chicken portraits. And so you also want to delve into secondary inquiries based on what your topic is. So her inquiries that she came up with was, what other artists have investigated chickens in their artwork? So depending on the topic that you choose, you might ask yourself what other artists investigated and fill in the topic. So take her questions and then reword them into your own questions that fit your own personal sustained investigation this year. She then talked about illustrators. So instead of just looking at artists, she also looked at illustrators. And if you look at the next slide, her final piece is actually more in the illustration style instead of the fine art portrait style. And then she also talks about style that is similar to what she is trying to achieve. So if you have an artist that you are aspiring to make artwork like, then you want to ask a question that shows that research and that search that you went on this year. Then the same question as what we kind of asked in the previous slide, what colors and styles of drawing, background, pattern, etc. do I like? And then what style should the chicken be created in order to capture the personality you are after? So all of these different questions are very good questions that you can take and then just reword them, substitute the vocabulary words for words that fit your own sustained investigation. But asking questions about other artists, asking questions about style, asking questions about the elements of art and principles of design, asking questions about capturing personality or whatever it is you're trying to achieve through your art, capturing emotion, capturing an idea, capturing a symbol, capturing a message. All of those things are going to be good things to base questions off of. The next thing you're going to do in the AP process is you're going to practice. So this is a beautiful example of what practice looks like for the AP portfolio. I have the teacher's sketch that she's inked. Then I see a page of experimentation with a watercolor blob on a sketch version of her chick. Then I see a more finished looking piece. and I can see up in the corner that it says day 33. So that means, and the one before says day 27. So it's showing that she's investigating this over time, doing it, maybe a drawing of a chicken every day. And I also see how the color has changed, the pattern has changed. And then I see in the final picture, not only her sketchbook, but also the materials that she used, like the watercolors and the pens and the brushes neatly laid out. The nice thing about this is this shows us exactly the type of pictures that AP is looking for, and it feels very accessible to me because this is the type of pictures that we all take to post on our Instagram pages. The only suggestion I have for this teacher is that her first picture should have been straightened and cropped since we cannot see the edges of the sketchbook. The other ones are perfect as is. Another thing she could have done better in the first image is she could have taken that picture during the daytime. I could tell that she took that picture late at night and it messes up the color of the white paper. Another way that you can fix that problem is you can upload your picture in Lightroom or Photoshop and you can do color correction and fix the color white. But if you don't know how to do that, then just take your picture during the day in front of a window so you have natural light and your paper will actually look white. You want to complete at least 3 sketches for each assignment. When you're completing your sketches in your sketchbook, test out different styles, compositions, and medias. Keep sketching until you get excited about an idea, and once you have an idea that you're excited about, focus on that idea. The temptation is to focus on the first idea that comes to us, but it is better to play with an idea for a while before you settle on one. Make notes in your sketchbook as you go. There is nothing wrong with labeling or journaling next to your sketches. Be sure to document everything with pictures, and that is something that I'm guilty of forgetting, so don't be like me. Take lots of pictures of your process as you go. The next step in the AP process is experimentation. So this person, because they were doing watercolor and they were also thinking about pattern and design, I see where they have lots of different watercolors and then they have taken a white gel pen and they've practiced lots of different patterns. So these are not pictures that are objective, they're non-objective, they're just lines, they're just shapes, they're just watercolor blobs. But it's showing me that she's experimenting with the different materials and the different patterns and the different medias and the ways that the watercolor bleeds, and then she's taken really nice images of that. So that is how you would do that for 2D, and I feel like it's a little bit easier to grasp and then do in 2D art and drawing. For my 3D students, I want you to think about the things that we do in ceramics, like making paper maquettes, like drawing things in our sketchbook from 3 different sides. It will not hurt you in this class to make small clay versions of things ahead of time if you're trying to work out how to do something and then making the big final project. So you are actually going to be given 2 weeks to make each sculpture because a sculpture takes a little bit more time to make than a drawing. And so I need you to use some of that time each week doing maquettes or experimentation so that we can document that for your art portfolio. You can also test out different materials. Do not be afraid to try new techniques as you work on your final piece. That experimentation is something that I would kind of do to the side and let that inform how you work on your final piece. But do understand that there's nothing wrong with when you are experimenting, failing from time to time. Now, if every single piece is a failure, then we might need to reevaluate what you're doing for your portfolio. But if one of your pieces does not turn out the way that you imagined, do not feel like it is a total loss. Documenting that and showing that to AP is just showing that you're experimenting and that you're trying and that you're pushing yourself. So one piece turning out differently than the way you had hoped is not a problem. This is an example of revision. So think about the sketches that we looked at of the previous couple slides. Think about the experimentation that you saw, and now look at this piece right here. So she's changed the composition up just a little bit, and she's filled in the background to give it a black negative space kind of look. And at this point in the process, this is when you would turn in your piece for a critique. Sometimes you will participate in an in-progress critique. That's a mouthful. And then other times you will participate in a final critique. I will try to give you as much feedback as possible through the computer, but I can only do that if you are reaching out to me. So please make sure that you are easy to contact and communicate with. After the project is finished, you will get a deeper critique from me and from whoever I can get to help me critique you. So sometimes they are my friends who are artists, sometimes they are other art teachers, sometimes it is your peers in the course. When you get that feedback, please do not feel like you are being attacked. The reason you're getting critiques and feedbacks is so that you can use that to inform your art making. You can either use that to revise the piece that you just turned in. If you revise the piece that you just turned in, then I want to make sure that you have documented that by taking a picture of the piece that you did and then how you revised it. We will then show it to AP where we have those pieces side by side to show how you are practicing revision in your artwork. So many times young artists are afraid to re-examine their pieces and they get very touchy about that subject. Be more mature than that and be willing to revise your pieces based on the feedback that you receive. If you get the same feedback over and over, that's probably a good sign that that feedback is legitimate. If you hear a lot of comments and one of them sounds very different than the others, that comment might be off. So let's say that you turn in a project and everyone says, good use of color. I like the colors. Wow, the colors really stand out. Your color choices are amazing. It's pretty safe to say that you're good with color. If the same piece gets, I think the proportions are off. There's something off about the neck. There's something off about his foot. There's something off about the face. The proportions seem weird to me. Then it's pretty safe to say that the thing that you need to work on next is proportion. So you know that color is something that you don't have to focus on for the next project, and you know that proportion is something that you do need to focus on for the next project. So listen for patterns in what people say. Now, if you hear a lot of things and then one person says, I don't get your meaning at all. I think that you should have used a white background instead of a black background because it just doesn't make sense. Then that one comment that isn't like anyone else's comment doesn't negate all the good comments about your color use. That one comment means that person had a very different opinion, but that it's probably an outlier and that you can ignore it safely. Being able to filter through people's comments about your artwork is another one of those higher level art skills that you need to practice in AP. That's another reason that this is a college level course and not a high school level course. So part of what we're learning through the year is to be more mature and to kind of thicken up our skin and be a little bit better at receiving criticism. If you hide from the criticism or avoid the critiques, you will not get any good feedback and you will not be able to grow throughout the year. Don't be afraid to make changes to your work after it's turned in. Every once in a while, I have a student that has been good their entire high school art career, and the first time I suggest a revision, they get a little bit offended. Please know that when I suggest revisions or changes to your work, it is not because I do not think that your work is good. It is because I'm trying to push you to grow and become a better artist. If I say that your art doesn't need any revisions, then that is a rare occurrence and you need to be excited about it. Sometimes I will tell you to revise the actual piece that you just turned in and to turn it back in. That doesn't mean I will not give you a grade for the work that you've already done. It means that I think that for the AP portfolio, it needs to be pushed a little bit farther. If I tell you not to make any changes to the piece that you just turned in, I will still give you feedback, and I expect those points that I asked you to consider to be considered in the next piece that you turn in. So either way, you're revising your work each time that you turn it in. This is an example of how that teacher revised the previous piece by adding a background and by adding other chicks. The next part of the AP process is communication, which really ties into what I just said about revision. So when you look at your piece, consider your initial inquiries or your goals, and then ask yourself if you reached the goals or the answers to your questions that you were trying to address. Does your intended message come across to the viewer? Your artwork should never be so esoteric and weird that no one else can understand it. That is not good art. That is something that you can enjoy privately, but that is not something that you should be turning into AP. A successful work of art communicates the intent of the artist. So if other people have a hard time understanding your meaning, it might mean that you need to revise that work of art to work on your communication skills. Our communication as an artist is not with our words. Our communication as an artist is with our images and with the way that we present our artwork. That last piece is the highest order part of AP art, in my opinion. So up until this point, you have been very focused on creating projects that fulfill assignments and turning those into your teacher, whether it was me or another art teacher. At this point in your art making process, you also need to think about how your work is going to be displayed at the end. Is it going to be hung on a wall? What is the lighting going to look like? If it is a sculpture, is it going to be displayed on a pedestal? Is it going to be hung from the ceiling? Is it going to be on the floor? How is your artwork going to be displayed? And how is that going to help the way that you communicate your message, your meaning, or your intent? The next thing that you need to do is make sure that you reflect on each piece as you finish. The way I will help you do this is I have given you a checklist, and I will give you time to complete the checklist each time you finish a project. You will answer the following questions about every piece that you make. What ideas did you have, and are they visually evident? How are they visually evident? What materials have you used? What processes have you used? This will help you to articulate your visual creation in written form. The nice thing about the AP portfolio is that it allows you to communicate visually, but it also allows you to help your visual communication through the written word. If you prepare this, you will be able to answer specific questions once you start in your sustained investigation. So the summary of what I've talked about today is, first, remember that the inquiry process is a key element to the AP portfolio. Also remember that it is not as weird and intimidating as the word inquiry makes you think. When I first heard that students were going to have to do guiding questions, I was very concerned. But once I heard some examples of what those questions sounded like, I felt much better. And I felt like that was something that me and Ms. Wright had prepared you all for throughout your high school art career. The second thing I want you to remember is to document everything as you go. That is very important for AP. It is very hard to scramble to find documentation in April, and if you do that, your portfolio will be less successful than it could be if you had documented all along. The third thing I want you to remember is that you will submit 15 images for your sustained investigation, no matter which type of portfolio you are completing. Some of those can be process images, and in sculpture, some of those will be details or second views of your sculpture. So not everyone has to have exactly 15 pieces, but we do want to have an extra amount of pieces to choose from, so we're not scrambling to fill slots at the end. If you don't take quality photographs of your process, you will have to stick to creating 15 works of art no matter what. The last thing I want you to remember is that the first projects that you did in my class should help you learn the process, and it should help spark an idea for your sustained investigation. If it does not help spark an idea for your sustained investigation, then you are up to coming up with a theme or topic on your own, which is totally fine with me. I just want you to have a topic in place when you start your sustained investigation next week. I want you to think about these things when you're forming your questions. So if you want to pause the video here and fill out the guiding question sheet, that's totally fine with me. Think about these things. Think about why you want to create the art and form that into a question. Think about how you want to create the work of art and form that into a question. Think about what you want the artwork to say and form that into a question. And those first words of each one of those sentences, why, how, and what, are question words that you can use to start your questions for your sustained investigation. Hopefully that has sparked some ideas, and hopefully you understand what is expected for you when you begin your sustained investigation and what the inquiry process will look like. As always, if you have any questions, please email me, and I hope that you have a wonderful, great day. Go make some art.